Imagine a trip to the Fair Day market. Hay, sage, and lavender fills the air. The aroma of baked bread mingles with the tang of iron, while sunlight gleams up of polished trinkets. You see the bundles of herbs hanging from twine. Clanking softly in the background are knives, horseshoes, and nails. A sea of weathered canopies covers merchant tables in faded reds, ochres, and taupes. Horses stampede patiently, bells jingle, and a breeze lifts the edges of canvas carrying scents of rosemary and hot cider, wrapping the market in a gentle swirl of magic. Children dart between stalls, laughing and shouting as they go. A merchant intrigues you with an oak reliquary, adorned with blacked hinges and clasps. He lifts the lid open, revealing crimson crushed velvet lining. And inside, a unicorn horn, or at least that's what he tells you. He says this horn can neutralize poisons, that it gleams in the moonlight with a faint inner fire, proving its power to any doubter. I'm your host, Melissa Nunez, and welcome to Kinley Cryptic, your source for all things strange, spooky, and unexplained. There was a time when people believed in fairy tales, magic, miracles, and malevolent unseen forces, even unicorns. Not in our hearts real, but biologically, medically, and dangerously real. These highly prized horns, otherwise known as allegories, were among royal treasuries. Apothecaries ground them into medicine and sometimes crafted them into drinking cups for monarchs and nobles. Believed to neutralize even the deadliest of poison. A cup made from an alicorn could safeguard entire banquets, and owning one was a mark of prestige, wealth, and mystical protection. Some cups were adorned with gold and gemstones, perhaps to enhance their potency. People treasured them for their mysticism as well as for the superstition they held. Some royal banquets even featured alicorn cups, suggesting that even a sip might carry magic. Medieval chroniclers and herbalists recorded unicorn horn among potent remedies in their pharmacopoeias. Recipes for alicorn powder along with ginger and myrrh, showing the blending of myth and practical magic. But if unicorns were never real, where did the alicorns come from? One major source were narwhal tusks, harvested from the Arctic and traded through Europe, arriving in royal courts as prized curiosities. These long, spiraling tusks seemed to hum with magic, reinforcing the myth of the unicorn and convincing nobles, apothecaries, and the public alike that these wondrous creatures truly roam the earth. You may have even heard tall tales from traders of the northern seas, of beasts that leapt from icy waters to graze in enchanted forests, further weaving imagination into commerce. And these tales of their mystical properties spread alongside these exotic objects, blending fact, fantasy, and business in a way that fascinated and bewildered medieval society. Northern traders or intermediaries embarked on perilous voyages, ensuring these horns would make the long journey from Arctic waters, and the spiraling tusks, glowing slowly in torchlight, seemed to whisper of a land where the impossible was real. Both shopkeepers and kings cherished them, so the unicorn's legend endured, even if its true form lived only in the icy seas. Pliny the Elder, a first-century Roman naturalist, wrote of horned creatures, chronicling botany, zoology, astronomy, geology, and art. In his work, he described creatures like the rhinoceros, said to be faster than a horse and stronger than a lion, weaving together observation, hearsay, and imagination. It became a foundational reference for many medieval scholars throughout the Middle Ages. Around 400 BCE, Theseus, a Greek physician, described early unicorns as wild donkeys from India with a peculiar white body and a purple head embellished with a single horn. Theseus believed he was documenting natural history, unicorns not as fairy tales but as mysterious wildlife. Theseus's unicorns became a part of the Greeks' fascination with India as a land of marvels, mysterious creatures, plants, and customs from regions that felt impossibly distant and mythical. Travelers spread tales that sparked imaginations throughout the Mediterranean, describing colossal elephants, long-tailed apes, jeweled-colored birds, and flora with enchanted blooms, painting a landscape as vivid in the mind as it was on land, both real and dreamlike. His descriptions mingled observation and embellishment, ensuring the unicorn's place as both natural mystery and fantastical symbol. In the Middle Ages, the unicorn legend, while still whimsical, became slightly darker. They went from exotic animals to a legendary powerhouse. Bestiaries of the time, which contained both biology and theology, described unicorns as fearsome, powerful, untamed creatures, capable of killing an elephant. Illustrations in these books were often illuminated with gold. Each page a miniature theater where the unicorn galloped across the margins, thrilling and cautioning readers. And if you wanted to catch one, all you needed to do was lay its head in a virgin's lap. The virgin's role symbolized more than purity. It was a narrative trick, a moral puzzle, and a touch of magic reminded the reader of humanity's place in a mysterious world. In the Aberdeen bestiary, unicorns are depicted mid-leap, eyes blazing, a single horn poised, majestic, dangerous, yet still drawn to purity. The pages glow with gold leaf, their limbs curling with tension, eyes alight with wild intelligence, inviting the reader to gasp at their majesty and imagine their impossible speed. These books taught readers not only about animals, but about morality, virtue, and divine order. In a story from an early Christian text, Physiologus, animals are portrayed through morality. The unicorn parable was a powerful symbol for Jesus, with its wild divinity and indisputable purity. The Physiologus paired the unicorn with moral allegory. Its capture by a virgin symbolized Christ's incarnation, a pure and divine being entering a mortal world, while its wildness reflected the untamable power of God's creation. This pairing of wildness and submission mirrored human longing for the untamable, an early example of folklore exploring boundaries between freedom and moral expectation. And many modern scholars agree that unicorns of this period were anything but gentle. They possessed a powerful, wild, selective nature. The medieval unicorn served as a moral lesson. The fairy tale unicorn was a survivor, and now the modern unicorn has grown into something stranger, no longer hiding deep within forests or woven into tapestries. They exist in a way a dream does, atmospheric, ephemeral, and just out of reach. Luminous, iridescent, radiant, and dreamlike, the modern unicorn leans into the fantasy. They don't demand belief, but rather ask to be felt. Folklorists like Marina Warner remind us that fairy tales don't disappear, even if they are shown to have only existed in story. These legends transform, first as stories carried through voice and memory, then ink to paper, later becoming light in motion and works of art, and finally existing as an immersive artistic experience. And for unicorns of the late 20th and 21st centuries, they stop becoming narrative and emerge as fantasy. Candy-colored toys, enchanted animated tales, neon-lit digital art, and hyperpop spectacles, unicorns twirl through our imagination as radiant icons of magic and unapologetic individuality. You don't just hear unicorn stories, you enter their realm. This is where stories like The Last Unicorn shine. The film captured something modern culture would later embrace. Unicorns were no longer trophies or a symbol of purity, but rather simple, lasting beauty. Peter Beagle's story is bright, distant, and almost untouchable. He has said in interviews how the unicorn embodies the outsider, surviving not by defeating foes, but by staying true to who she is. The unicorn is a light being crushed by the world. The blissful, melancholy tone becomes the boomerang, and every fairy tale gives us a monster. In The Last Unicorn, the monster is the red bull. The red bull doesn't speak. It doesn't explain itself. It simply drives unicorns into the sea. Scholars often interpret it as inevitability, time, greed, and despair. But in fairy tale terms, it's simpler than that. The red bull is what happens when wonder is no longer welcome. Beagle's unicorns remind us that identity and survival can be dazzling without conquest. Magic is not measured in triumph, but in resilience. Now unicorns reign as nobles, free of their mortal bounds, but unlike traditional fairy tale royals waiting to be rescued, our hero rules nothing, belongs nowhere, and is powerful precisely because they answer to no one. Literary scholar, author, and widely recognized founding father of modern fairy tale studies, Jack Sipes, argues that stories now resist purpose, turning away from work, prescribed romance, and tidy conclusions. The unicorn embodies this perfectly as ornamental, excessive, emotionally sincere, and exists gloriously beyond function or profit. Point? They exist to be radiant. And in the hyperpop genre, the unicorn embraces delightful fantasy, femininity in full bloom, twisted charm, and sweetness pushed to the edge of collapse. Which brings us to what contemporary scholars describe as aesthetic folklore, where meaning is carried through color, texture, sound, and feeling rather than plot. The unicorn becomes glitter instead of gospel, vibes instead of virtue, dreaming without apology. And if we learn anything from The Last Unicorn, softness is not weakness, surviving not by hardening but by remaining luminous in a world trying to make her human and malleable. To be ethereal with cotton candy tresses, celestial surroundings, and dreamy soundscapes teaches us to refuse becoming smaller in a world that demands conformity. Remaining magical is to insist that not everything needs to be explainable, easily categorized, or monetized. And it's a phenomenon that shows itself again and again in modern fairy tales. Wonder is a quiet form of defiance. Fast forwarding from monasteries to present-day pride parades, unicorns became radiant, dramatic, and resilient. This continuation mirrors their medieval representation as creatures of fearsome power and selective presence, one that is unbound by human expectations. What endures is not victory, but magic carried forward, as the last unicorn does even after the red bull drives hope away. The unicorn is the last of her kind, mischaracterized by the world, and forced to change so that she might carry on, marked forever by a life she can never fully return to. She lives, but with sorrow. Readings of fairy tales often focus on transformation as both salvation and loss. The last unicorn understands this tension intuitively. You don't leave the story thinking everything is fixed. Something precious survived, but it hurt. That's not tragedy, that's honesty. Her journey mirrors the unwavering spirit of those who, across centuries, refuse to let their identity be erased. The unicorn's exceptional and free-spirited nature resonates with LGBTQ+ folks. They refuse to blend in, conform, or fall in line with traditional norms. Books, movies, music, and art depict unicorns as existing outside of family structures and gender expectations, a point made by literary scholar Pugh in examining how these innocent symbols quietly define heteronormativity, while Warner and Sipes observe that fairy tales often express resistance through mystical elements, showing how the unicorn's timeless mysticism resonates across centuries. All this allows people to imagine a world beyond imposed norms. The unicorn becomes both a historical and present-day figure of defiance. Today, this legacy is visible in rainbow flags, festivals, drag performances, and online communities, where the unicorn symbolizes visibility and celebration. It also manifests through style. Glittering costumes, vibrant signs and icons, and dreamlike makeup all translate the unicorn's mythic freedom into lived, expressed identity. From the shiny chaos of hyperpop music to iridescent gowns twirling under stage lights, and eye-catching performances that bend every expectation, the modern unicorn sparkles as a radical force of bold self-expression. Unicorns continue to signal unapologetic uniqueness and joy, thus driving home the point that they never became a symbol for the rainbow community, but were always a rare force of inevitable individuality. In this way, the unicorn functions as both myth and metaphor, a creature who never compromises their magic, a reminder that being true and standing out are true acts of courage. So, when I see unicorns on pins, murals, or even protest signs, I don't see them as silly trinkets. I see them as folklore alive, adapting, glowing, and finding new forms across time. We've peered into the shadows of elusive horned creatures, learned of mighty beasts that rival rhinos, tiptoed through the wild innocence of Christian allegories, marveled at the medieval cure-all charms, and finally watched unicorns unfurl into dreamy celebrations of self-expression, identity, and love. They sparkle in festivals, shimmer in art both on and off screen, and linger in quiet corners of the imagination, always ready to surprise. Maybe the most extraordinary thing about unicorns is its persistence, prancing through the centuries, bending time, but keeping its radiant, fearless, and untamable heart intact. It reminds us that mystique doesn't need to be explained, that wonder doesn't need to be tamed. Even in a world that asks us to shrink, splendor can prevail. As the last unicorn says, I'm not the same. Proof that even after loss and heartbreak, magic lives on. Thank you for tuning in on another episode of Kindly Cryptic. If you enjoy all things strange, spooky, and unexplained, please follow for more.